I did some research, right? Did a little quick discovery before we hopped on here to talk about this. And everyone was wondering, William Knight, there's a couple scenarios. Either one, the man threw the fight and was like, all right, I'm betting against myself, whatever the case may be, even though you can't even do that today in the UFC, right? Number two, he's spending all his time lifting weights in the gym and not actually training, preparing for a fight. Or number three, man, like he got beat up with some leg kicks and he just got immobilized and couldn't move. And it's probably a mixture of a lot of those things, but he came out and said, listen, and this is verbatim. He was like, I just went in there and I froze. I'm sorry, guys. This one's on me. Y'all didn't lose. I lost. I froze. And that happens. And to see a man of his stature, a big, scary guy like William Knight, man, you get in front of him. You don't want to get hit by that guy. For him to admit something like that, I think is very honorable, right? At the same time, the track record does not bode well. So AJ, let's go over a couple of events that happened recently, right? So William Knight, 2 fights ago, right? He was slated to fight, and I'm actually going to we're going to do this together right here. I'm going to bring this up. William Knight, 2 fights ago, he was slated to fight Maxime Grisham, right, at 205 pounds. He comes in about 12 pounds overweight, right, and still loses the fight. And then he fights Devin Clark at heavyweight, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right? Ballooned up to about 250 pounds, right? Lost the fight. Now we come back to 205 pounds. And a lot of people sat here and said, I don't know or believe that William Knight can make 205 pounds. Well, he makes 205 pounds. But the question becomes, you made 205 pounds, stepped in the cage, and threw a grand total of 8 significant strikes through 15 minutes with no wrestling, 0 head strikes landed the entire fight. It's like a historic number at that point. So what is the point here, AJ? Let me ask you this, because we're not trying to kick a man when he's down, but what's the point of making that grueling cut to 205 to stand in the cage and get leg kicked like 50 times and do nothing about it?
What's the point? I mean, if there's any silver lining, it's you get half your pay, you get your show money. But that's really, it's a rough mental path that William Knight's probably going to be traveling right now. So I feel rough for him, because if you've ever been there, whether it's in a combat sense sport or a performance aspect or any kind of thing where you're putting yourself out there in front of people, sometimes you freeze. It's happened. It happens to everybody. It does. And the worst time for it to happen is when you're fighting another man and both of you in your underwear in front of live TV. So rough for William Knight, man. But this is I also want a mulligan, Derek, because I feel like everybody wants a mulligan on this one, even William Knight himself. This is a rough fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll talk about the next fight too, but it's back-to-back fighters who the storyline, I guess, is either overcoming or falling victim to performance anxiety, right? Alexander Hernandez said that's been blocking him up for a while. And then William Knight, clearly, call it freezing. You could be mean about it. It's performance anxiety, man. You get in front of a bunch of people and then you don't pull the trigger. It happens. It does happen. However, in a spot like this, it just looks bad because for Marcin, here, let's give a little bit of credit. Marcin Prachnio actually he was part of the reason why William Knight couldn't get off, right? He corralled him in the corner, he kept at bay, kept him at distance, and just hit him where he couldn't get hit back, right? So he said it. He was like, I saw William Knight trying to come through with the big right hand the whole entire fight. So what did I do? I just question mark kicked him. I calf kicked him a million times. I just didn't allow him to hit me. And with that being said, man, I mean, impressive performance overall by Marcin Prachnio, I guess, right? But you'd have to also imagine this is probably the easiest win of his career.
Yeah, this is you hitting a heavy bag. You know, in karate class, when you have your heavy bags and you're working on your combos, you just fake the jab, low kick, fake the jab, high kick, question mark kick. That's just what it was, and worked out perfectly for Prachnio.
Question, does William Knight remain on the UFC's roster after this week?
I don't think so, man. With that kind of historic performance, I think Uncle Dane is going to even tell him, man, if you're nervous about this, go somewhere else, perform, win some fights, and then come back, because he is a star in the making. Like he has potential behind him. He has a following. He has a fan base. He's this big dude, all these muscles, very explosive. He has all the right mixture for a UFC star. It's just he needs to figure something out. That X factor is a necessary factor to win,
Do you remember Tom Breeze?
Tom Breeze?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember him, right? So he reason why he got very talented fighter, man, but he got cut from the company because of multiple bouts of pulling out last minute because of performance anxiety. I don't think Uncle Dana takes very well to guys who are suffering with that. So I have a feeling that William Knight will no longer be gracing the Octagon's roster after this point, man. But then you got a couple of different people who are gonna probably get the boot, man. Lena Landsberg, she retired, right? So like we're kind of OSP gets knocked out. We're probably going to be having a little bit of a swath of, a little spring cleaning. All right, man. So one more time, Marcin Prachnio gets the unanimous decision win against William Knight. Plus 300 easiest over, 1.5 rounds you've ever seen in your entire life.